Well, hey there guys, I'm Max the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaDungeon.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from Malik Edwards. What do you do while waiting for a new Zelda game? I confess that I actually play different video games. Bradley Crowling asks, what portion of the Zelda fan community do you favor the most? The art community, remixes, trailers, videos, comics, etc.? Well, you know, I think the Zelda fan community in general is pretty, has a lot of different aspects that are all equally cool in their own ways. I'd say that just for me, just because it's simplest, for lack of a better term, I generally get a lot, I look at a lot of Zelda fan art, and I enjoy a lot of the remixes, like the stuff you see on Overclocked Remix or whatever. That stuff's pretty cool. It's also the easiest to find and some of the most abundant. Some of those, Flash movies can be, really awesome, but they're a little rare, so I guess they're one of the coolest things, but you don't see them a lot, so it's hard for me to say that. But sure, tell me your guys' favorite Zelda fan community aspect in the comments, though. Minecraft Video Creator asks, my question is, what is going to be the name of the new Zelda game? Well, the one on the Wii U is going to be called, because it's going to be, multiplayer, it's going to be called Four Swords Wii U, like Wii U. And the one on the 3DS has been confirmed to just be called The Legend of Zelda. No, I'm just kidding. Well, technically that is the working title of the 3DS one. Actually, the titles, we have no idea what they're going to be called, the two upcoming ones. We never really know until, they tell us. Who'd have thought? Josh Yoshi asks, do you think that the new Zelda game for the 3DS will be called Link to the Past 2? If not, what are your guesses of a possible title regarding what we have seen from the trailer? Well, I honestly don't think it's going to be named after the drawing mechanics, so I really have no idea what the title might be. However, I do think A Link to the Past 2 is a possible title. It's uncommon for the Zelda series, but technically there's at least one example of that with Zelda 2. And Nintendo's been doing that recently, at least a little bit. You see things like Mario Galaxy 2, so I don't know. It's possible. It's very unclear because it's a little bit of an odd case. I couldn't really give you a straight answer on this one, unfortunately. Black Raven 6695 asks, following Zelda 3DS's announcement, I saw a lot of backlash regarding the wall merging mechanic. Why do you think so many people are unimpressed with this idea? Well, honestly, probably just because it's the Zelda fan community, their reactions to anything that isn't exactly the same half the time. No offense, because I've done this same thing, if I'm being honest. I think, honestly, the reason for it is that it's a new thing that they've shown, and they haven't shown much of, so we haven't, gotten a grasp of how it could be used in the game, really. So it's just this weird idea that they've shown very little of, and we don't really know what it's going to be like in the game, so it just looks really weird. That's honestly the main reason that people aren't impressed with it. I mean, it'll be kind of like a lot of things in the Zelda series, I think unless it's terrible, there's always that. But, like a lot of things in the Zelda series, once we see how it actually functions in the game, I don't think a lot of people are going to mind it as much as you hear now. It's just going to die down, it's not going to be that big a deal. But I think that is the core reason, just because it's a new thing and they haven't really elaborated too much on it or given us too many details, so. The Dritz asks, Nintendo has a past of trying to make games suit the technology instead of the other way around. Most notoriously, Wii games use motion controls where they really shouldn't be used. With the new Legend of Zelda for 3DS, the new mechanic of flattening against things has been shown to be potentially useful, but do you think this will quickly become stale? What are your thoughts on how it will hold up as a clever mechanic throughout the game? Well, again, I don't really know, because there's a lot of examples in the series of great, interesting new mechanics that just were awesome throughout the game. And there are also a lot of well, maybe not a lot, but there are certainly some examples of mechanics that got really dumb fast. I could cite the Twilight Realm sections in Twilight Princess, which were an awesome idea that just had such weird execution, because it was just so slow and boring. But, so I couldn't really say which it's going to be. I'm optimistic, though, so I think it's probably going to be fine. I think what it'll ultimately matter is how they use it throughout the game. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean that they have to use it in some, crazy, fascinating, super amazing, interesting way. It just means that they have to balance, how much you have to do with it. I mean, if you have to use it a lot, it needs to be really freaking interesting, obviously. However, so far it doesn't seem like it's actually that humongous of a deal. You use it in, very brief portions, and you'll probably use it a lot, but they're very non-intrusive short sections, it looks like, from what we've seen so far. So honestly, it doesn't need to be that deep, as long as they don't make it, really crazy too much of it. That was grammar. as long as it's not like really oversaturated throughout the gameplay, it doesn't need to be that impressive. But it just depends on how much they're going to use it and how much they balance that aspect. Yoshito Mario 1 asks, how do you feel about using the same link from A Link to the Past for Zelda 3DS when he was already in 4 other games? I don't really have an opinion on it. For the record, we don't really know necessarily if it is the same Link yet. We know it's a direct sequel to Link to the Past, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same Link. Maybe it's his son, maybe it's his evil twin, maybe you're the bad... But bottom line is, we don't really know that for sure. Even if it is, though, I don't think it really matters a ton. I mean, yeah, we've seen that Link a lot, but it hasn't really, like, impacted those games and made them, like, feel too much the same. Well, they are very similar, but it's not because of Link. So, I don't know. I think that it doesn't really matter in the long run, and it is sort of interesting if they do another continuation of that long story arc for that Link. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that'd be fun. Matt asks, with the announcement of the Light and Dark World mechanic reappearing in the Link to the Past 2, do you think Nintendo's taking too many elements from Link to the Past? Well, I'm not particularly like to answer that question, because honestly, you know, they've shown a lot of elements from A Link to the Past 2. A Link to the Past, the original. Excuse me. And, you know, I guess if the overworld is going to be like an exact replica throughout the entire game, that's going to be kind of dumb, and then I would agree with you, but that's not certain yet, so, and I doubt it. Regarding the Dark World, no, I don't think it's going to mean they're taking too much from A Link to the Past, and it's clear they have some original ideas, like with the drawing stuff, but at the same time, I do think that it does raise a concern in one aspect, which is that do we really need to completely retread that theme? I don't know. Maybe that is exactly what you asked. Maybe it is borrowing a little too much. Mostly I just hope that they come up with a really good explanation for this, and a really good justification for it in the gameplay. Explanation for story, justification for gameplay. It better be really interesting in this game, and it better be explained pretty well within the story why the Dark World is still there or was made again. So just, we'll see what they do with this. A little pessimistic on this part specifically. Lil ZG asks, considering that we have seen one-to-one map recreations of A Link to the Past's overworld in the 3DS game trailer, what do you think are the chances of there being a remake of A Link to the Past included in this new game? Would you want to see them add a remake to the finished product? Well, it's not exactly one-to-one. There are some differences, so it's not like they can just take what they had and shown us and just make the original Link to the Past there. They would have to definitely, like, remodel some parts from what they've shown us of the new game. I guess that would be interesting. I don't really think that they would do that. I mean, like, I think that would, like, if they were going to be remaking Link to the Past, they just would have done that instead of making the sequel to Link to the Past. And I think it would also completely defeat the point of them having areas. We don't know how many, but having some areas that are very similar to Link to the Past's. So ultimately, I guess I don't see what the point would be. I think they would just do something maybe more like Ocarina of Time 3D's Master Quest option. But it is an interesting thought. I will commend you there. That actually would be kind of interesting to see. Will the Dragoon asks, do you think that Nintendo will reference the Chris Houlihan room in A Link to the Past 2? Not really, no. I don't think that that's too likely. I guess it's not impossible, but I don't know. That wasn't a Link to the Past thing, and it was part of a contest. I guess I don't see too much of what the point would be. It's kind of just be like, the context is totally lost. Question Mark asks, as you may have noticed, there is a blue sword that appears in the Zelda 3DS trailer. Could it be the Master Sword? The Master Sword is said to sleep forever at the end of A Link to the Past, so why would the same Link get the sword straight after A Link to the Past? Could this involve time travel, traveling before A Link to the Past, the past world to replace the Dark World? Well, no, the past world isn't going to be the Dark World or whatever, because the Dark World is the Dark World. Or whatever. But, you know, I don't know if it's going to be the Master Sword or not. It would make sense considering it's in most Zelda games, but it might be something else. That said, I also don't think that line really disproves anything regarding the Master Sword being in this game. I mean, yeah, it says it sleeps forever, blah, 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 but that's one of those lines that's just, it's supposed to sound epic, but, you know, like, even back then, when I honestly don't think that they had the timeline that crazy figured out, there was Zelda games that came after. They had the Master Sword. I mean, that line's already been kind of ditched, in my humble opinion. So I don't really think that it obstructs them from using it in the sequel at all. I just don't see that as an obstruction in any way. Moe2K4 Kills Link asks, if you could add something to the new Zelda Wii U, like a weapon, item, dungeon, etc., what would it be? Motion controls. LinkFan99 asks, since Hyrule Historia only covers the history up to Skyward Sword, do you think that they'll ever make a Hyrule Historia 2 in order to include some of the games that have come out after Hyrule Historia? They'll probably, like, there definitely will be new games coming out that will have new additions to the timeline and whatnot. However, and, they could definitely do, like, another thing like Hyrule Historia to, just detail everything and have these rulings on missing details or whatever. However, I'm more inclined to think they're just going to make it clearer moving forward so that they don't need to do that. And again, this is Nintendo, so you could very well be onto something. The Missing Link asks, if they made a Dark Zelda game, would you expect a death? Alright, last question. Someone you don't know, I assume that from the get-go, asks, why does the Skull Kid have 2 fairies? Well, it's not like with the Kokiri. I mean, he doesn't have these fairies because they were, like, appointed to him. Like, politicians or whatever. He has them because they're his friends. So, like, what are you implying? Are you implying that someone isn't allowed to have more than one friend? Because if you... Alright, guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later. With the announcement of the Light and Dark World mechanic the Missing Link asks, if they made a... This is hard.